Thanks, Sandy. Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Communities Committee, which is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. Could I remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off their video when they're not addressing the meeting. Should you wish to contribute to any item, you should write "Speak" in the Teams chat function, and you will be invited to speak in order about new issues. Should your question or issue be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so that we deal with the business as efficiently as possible. Now, the usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you to either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time, or you could write "Leave" in the Teams chat function and then join. This will allow us to monitor the member's presence. Now that housekeeping's out of the way, I'm wanting to update you on some good news that 2 council submissions have successfully been shortlisted for the UK-wide APSI Awards taking place next month. The 2 submissions shortlisted are: 1, the rollout of the new curbside collection service during a pandemic in the category of waste management and recycling service, and the second one is for transforming the registration services during a global pandemic in the category of Best Innovation or Demand Management Initiative. Okay, so move on now to the business in hand. Claire, can you give us a sentiment, please, indicating who is participating remotely, and any apologies, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning. This morning we have 4 members present with us in the Council Hall, as well as yourself, Chair. We have the Vice Chair, Councillor Scobie and Councillor Stitt. We have 2 apologies this morning from Councillors Drysdale and Councillor McGregor. The members currently not present on Teams, although this is changing as I'm probably speaking, are Councillors Dempster, Councillors McCammon, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Tate and Councillor Wood, all others present on Teams.
Thanks.
I just put in apologies for Councillor Marshall.
Got that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, have we any declarations of interest?
Microphone, please.
Sorry, I'll move on to item 3, the minute of the meeting of the 29th of June. This is for approving. Are we happy to approve?
Yeah.
Hey, John?
I'm happy to approve, and it's just good to see that Kirsty Peden had her finger on the pulse about the Afghan local employed staff relocation scheme. They seem to be quicker than the UK government on that one.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a fair comment. Good foresight by Kirsty and that team, so thank you. Anyone else?
Chair, sorry,
you happy?
Can I?
Ian, yep.
Yeah, just quickly. The last, you'll notice from the minutes, there are no apologies from me. I was actually rushed to hospital the night before and did submit my apologies, but possibly they weren't actually put forward to the committee. It's just to make that clear. Thanks.
No, we can, given the circumstances, Ian, we can fix that. That's okay. We'll note the apologies. Ronnie, I saw you come up on the screen. Do you want to come in? I think it was just Ronnie logging on.
Yeah, I was. You're quite right, Chair.
Thanks, Ronnie. So are we happy to note then they approve the minutes of 29th of June? Happy to agree? So they're approved. Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 4, the Community's Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for financial period 21-22 for the period ended up to the 30th of June 2021. Report provides members with an overview of the financial performance against budget for communities for 2021-22, including details of the continuing financial implications of the COVID-19 emergency response and subsequent recovery. Caroline is available in Teams to take any questions on this, and members should note that Caroline will advise of an update in Appendix 2. The poverty funding for 2021 and 21-22 was fully allocated by this committee in the February 21 meeting. Caroline, you'd like obviously to update the committee, and then are you ready for questions after that?
Yes, Chair, that's right. Just to say that due to a misunderstanding by myself, the Appendix 2 indicates that there's 139,000 still to be allocated, but actually that was allocated at the April committee, so there is nothing left to be allocated. So sorry about that. I'm willing to accept any questions.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. Any members got any questions for Caroline? It doesn't look like it at this moment, Caroline. And obviously we'll get an updated Appendix 2 later date, so that's fine.
Yeah, certainly at the next.
Okay, in that case then, are we happy to go to the recommendations? Are we happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2? Thank you very much. Thank you, Caroline. We'll now move on to item number 5, the Winter Service Plan. The report provides members with the proposals for winter operations for 2021-22. I'm particularly encouraged on the proactive arrangements we are putting in place to communicate to the public in relation to our winter operations. We've got Mike Fox is available in Teams to take any questions on the report. Mike, are you there? Mike Fox. Good morning, Mike. Hope you're well. We're just come to the Winter Service Plan. Is there anything you'd like to add, or are you happy just to go straight to questions?
Happy to go to questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions for Mike?
Councillor Maitland.
Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just a question about the communication that we make to community councils and the public in general. We have in the past, I know, communicated considerably with these groups, but I wondered if we're still doing that and what the arrangements are currently. Does it go automatically to community councils every year?
Thanks, Chair. The intention this year is to deal with the communication elements slightly differently and to make sure that all community councils have access to a copy of the Winter Service Plan. This previous years, it was probably left to the individual community councils to access the council webpage and get the information from that location. So we're being a bit more proactive in actually putting the information out there for community councils.
Okay, Jane?
Thank you. Yes, that's helpful.
Anyone else? Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, it's just on 3.3 or 3.2 and 3.3. Yeah. Within the available resources, the council roads and footways have been assessed on a prioritised basis. And it's one of the issues that continually comes up year on year in terms of the footpaths. It refers there to footways, but the footpaths where the land has been transferred literally to DGHP. Are we in early discussions with DGHP now that they are under the new regime, so that we can see the footpaths in the estates properly gritted, and that there is no, well, we minimise or try and minimise the risks of slips and trips.
Willie, I'm kind of minded to say, can we discuss that later in the agenda with the when we're talking about the cooperation between us and DGHP. But Mike, can you give us any update if your team have been in touch with DGHP about this?
Thanks, Chair. At the moment, no, we haven't had any direct communication with the DGHP. I was conscious that there are new initiatives within the remit of DGHP, and I was very keen to have discussions with them to see if there was maybe a slightly different approach to how they were going to tackle winter maintenance activity.
Okay, so I'm kind of mind to think that between this and Willie's question and the report later on in the agenda about how we're going to be working with DGHP in terms of the public realm, it's maybe something that we should be supporting you to do, I think, and I think that's exactly what Willie's intentions of asking the question are. Am I right?
You're totally correct, Chair, and I think, you know, we need to get into early discussions rather than waiting on it, and I hear Mike saying that that's his intention. I would hope that we would do that, notwithstanding there's an item in terms of our cooperation with DGHP, which is much better, in my opinion, but we do need to address this one.
Yeah, I think that's noted, and I think Mike's got the message, and they'll be in touch with DGHP about that. Yeah. I'm just looking to see who else is due to come in to speak here. Is Councillor Dempster next, please?
Thanks, Chair. Apologies for being a wee bit late. Just about, we do primary routes, and that's the schools, health centres, etc. But there's a location in my ward, and I'm sure it's no unique, where we simply stop at the entrance to the health centre, and patients going to see a doctor normally fragile anyway. The route into the health centre isn't gritted. And I know currently that's no responsibility, but is there some way we can engage with the health board or with DGHP or have a collaborative approach? Because it wouldn't be I'm saying it wouldn't be a big deal. I can't imagine it a big deal for an extra couple of shovel-faced salt when we're gritting routes and footways anyway to do up to the health centre door. I realise it's no responsibility, and what I'm saying is, can we engage with someone to see if there's an operational opportunity among the three organisations to ensure? Because at the moment, the girls at the reception desk running about taking sand out a grit bin to try and make sure that patients are safe going to see the doctor. I just don't think that that's something that's acceptable if we can do something to help. So it's just a plea to see if we can speak to someone and come up with a solution rather than just leave it year on year for someone else to do something that should be done as a matter of routine. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mike.
Mike, you get any comment on
that? Thanks, Chair. We do every winter certainly engage with the NHS around support for them, predominantly around hospital facilities, DGRI, and out west as well, some of the more cottage hospitals. We have provided support as well when they've requested it, especially maybe in more prolonged or severe weather situations. But again, as part of our pre-winter discussions with the NHS, I'm more than happy to talk to them around the primary care situation and also the level of service that they feel that they get from us around the hospital facilities.
Chair, I'll take it up and make it offline if that's all right with you. Thank you, Chair.
That's fine. Thanks, Mike, for that answer. Anyone else to speak? I don't think so. I suppose my question, Mike, would be, are we utilising the resilience teams that have sprung up during COVID, or are we talking to them to see if there's ways that they can help support us through the winter programme?
Thanks, Chair. And that's yes. That's our plan. To we had discussions with two groups last year that were very successful, and I think that there's a significant opportunity, positive opportunity, to engage with these groups that are more than happy to provide assistance. Especially obviously in winter time. So I'm more than happy to do that.
That's very reassuring. Thank you. Anyone else got any questions for Mike on this? Just give you a minute. I think that's the end of the questions. I think the shortage of questions kind of speaks for the quality of the report, Mike. Thank you. So I'm going to move to recommendations. We've been asked to approve the winter service plan for 21-22 in order to maintain a winter service across the local authority roads network within Dumfries and Galloway. And also it's not in the recommendations, but we're noting Mike's willingness to communicate and work with external agencies to make things safer and better for the population of Dumfries and Galloway. So are we happy to go with that recommendation? Agreed. Thank you very much. Now move on to the Infrastructure Capital Programme Finance and Progress Monitoring Report by Head of Roads and Infrastructure. The report provides members with a financial and progress update for the projects and programmes contained within the 21-22 Infrastructure Asset Class Capital Programme. Mike's still online and he's got William Neal with him available to take any questions on the report. William or Mike, have you anything to add to this, or are you happy going straight to questions?
Happy to go to questions, Chair.
Thanks, Mike. So, any questions for Mike or William? Ian Blake.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just an explanation of it's a recommendation 2.4. I've read the report. I think it may just be a typographical error, but it's agreed to the change. I just wonder if the change had been changed, or is it just a typing error?
We missed that last committee when you weren't here, Ian. Okay, thank you. Mike, can you just confirm, is it a typographical error?
Chair, yes, yeah. It's a typo error. There should only be one to the change.
I think it's a prize for Councillor Blake for showing that he's read the report in full. So well done, Ian. Now we've got Councillor Stitt.
It's just, Chair, on page 83, 4.25, but members are agreed to inclusion of the following schemes. Isle Steps vehicle activate sign. This has been ongoing, but I'd just like to ask Mike who they're going to be corresponding with, because Isle Steps used to be part of Triqueer Landward Community Council and it's defunct now.
You got that, Mike?
Okay, thanks, Chair. What we'll do with that request is that it has been a period of time, and we'll go back to the correspondent that my colleague Tony Toppin has been communicating with previously. If there's no community council there, then obviously that's an unfortunate situation now. But there is an individual, I believe, that's been in communication with Tony on this one.
I think the person might be Gail Curry.
I personally don't know the name.
Okay, but just a member of the public, yeah. Councillor McCammon, Jackie, could you use, or you've got it in the chat now, Jackie McCammon?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I realised I should probably do both. Good morning, everyone. it was just really a question. It might be a daft laddie question. It's maybe evidence of my rookie councillor at the moment, but it was really just to ask how you guys prioritise or come up with the streets that you're going to, for example, perform the surface dressing on. And the only reason I ask, and I won't go into specific streets and that in my ward, but there are, for example, one of the main routes to the schools, both schools, primary and secondary, is in a terrible condition. And please point me in the right direction if I've missed it, but I can't see it anywhere for work being done. So I just wondered how these works are prioritised. Is it based on reports from the public or elected members? Are they assessed, and if so, how often? But it was really just for my information, just so that I can get to grips with how to understand it a bit more. Thanks.
Mike, can you give a kind of quick answer? Or I'm going to suggest, Jackie, that you maybe get in touch with Mike offline outside the committee after he's given you his response, and they can give you a lot more detail on how they assess everything. But can you give us a kind of short answer, either William or Mike?
Yeah, certainly, Chair. Surface dressing, in principle, is a preventative measure, and is, in simple terms, is a mechanism to waterproof the existing road and to improve the skid resistance on a particular road. There are other assessments that are considered, but the preparation work that is required for surface dressing should really be of a minimal standard. So if there are pretty significant defects on a particular road, then it may not be suitable for surface dressing. But more than happy to discuss that offline.
Yeah, because so Jackie can make some arrangements to speak to either you or William or one of the team to then explain fully how we do the full assessment. You okay with that, Jackie?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I've got Jim Dempster now.
Thanks, Chair. Just to commend our staff firstly for getting to grips with the core paths issue. I think they were in such a state that some folk couldn't walk them because of the heavy growth and the lack of maintenance. That's now been addressed, and I'm delighted to see that, and hopefully that's something that will continue. And the only observation I make on it was I see there's an opportunity to work with communities to invest in these core paths. I mean, I hope that we would take up that opportunity and work with community groups that have money to try and improve the core paths in their area. It'd be an opportunity for best value, if you like, Chair. The only other thing that's an observation, I'll take it up with Mike offline as well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of footway improvements programmed, and I think nowadays we're asking folk to walk and cycle more. The footway should be of a standard that they can do that without any risk to injury or tripping or whatever. So we'll take that with Mike offline, because it seems to me very few footways, given the number of footways we're bound to have right across Nithsdale and across in Dumfries and Galloway in general. Thanks, Chair. So there's no response required in that.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm going to make a quick response to that, Jim, is that footpaths are for people walking, not for people in bikes. And I think the quicker we address that problem, the better. But I appreciate the infrastructure needs to keep it safe for cyclists as well, but that's just a hobby horse of my own. Who else have we got want to speak here? I think we've got Willie and then John Young after that.
Thanks, Chair. My question may be out with this report, but it refers to on page 81, flood risk management, and there is no mention of this flood prevention scheme. As I say, it may be out with this report, but I would hope that we are on target with that, the one in Station Street in Stranraer. And as I say, it may be out with this report. Can I go on to page, and I'll take advice from Mike on that one. Can I go on to page 82 and what you're just talking about, core paths? And again, I note in this one, the scheme has been funded through government's rural tourist infrastructure funding. It's really to try and get an update on the coastal pathway in Wigtonshire from Cairnryan right round to the Isle of Whithorn, there doesn't seem to be much movement on that coastal pathway, which is a huge asset to the west of the region. Again, on page 83, where it talks about cycling, walking and safer routes, and this is in particular reference to the 75 and the 77, where we've got cycle routes on part of the road, but it doesn't link up, it hasn't been complete, and you can get off the ferry at Cairnryan and you have no cycle route until you hit the Beach as you start to climb the hill. And I would hope that we can do something with that in terms of the cycling and pathways, cycleways, to see that they do join up and that they're fit for purpose along the 75 and the 77. And again, a question on 103, and it might be out with Mike again, and it's just to do with the 716, the work that we did at Kilstay Bay, which was a tremendous amount of work put in there at a lot of cost. And I just wonder if, with all the work that we have put in there, whether it will reduce the number of times the A716 will be closed, or indeed that we will reach a point where it will never need to be closed with the works that we've done on the 716.
I think there's about 3 questions there, Mike.
Yeah, I'll certainly maybe work backwards from the most recent question. I'll probably look to my colleague Duncan MacDonald on the A716, who I think is on the call, on the Kilstay Bay.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Morning, Chair. I didn't quite catch the whole of the question at the end there, unfortunately, but I think if I picked it up correctly, but Councillor Scobie, you were saying, were you asking, I mean, in terms of the works that we've done to date and continue to do, will that in itself remove the need for road closures in the 716? And I think the short and the simplest answer to that is no. The measures we're doing are not going to stop the sea from getting onto the water being washed onto the 716 road, and with it debris. What we're doing, I think, is we're looking to minimise the impact on the road from those measures that were put in, and it certainly allows us to hopefully get the road opened a lot sooner than it would otherwise. We might mitigate some of that debris wash up, but we certainly won't stop it completely. We can't guarantee that, and I think from the sort of reports we've given to date on this, and through yourself and to the local community, we've been honest about that you know, climate change being what it is, we don't expect that things will get any easier down that section of the road. So what we're doing is that we're trying to, through the road closure procedure, to ensure that we have public safety as the paramount concern, and we will continue to close the road, and we foresee that will continue going into the future.
Okay, Mike, do you want to pick up the other 2 questions?
Yeah, there was also mention about the A77, A75 cycleways. What has been happening most recently is that the Sustrans have been carrying out a strategic assessment nationally of what they term the national cycle routes across Scotland. And as part of that sort of consultation, they've been looking at and identifying locations and areas where there's a need to improve cycleways, upgrade some cycleways, but also remove some cycleways from the strategic network. That's a piece of work that's still ongoing at the moment, but through our network arrangements, we're more than happy to continue to speak with Sustrans around the issues raised by Councillor Scobie.
I think the first question was about the core paths. I'm not mistaken, is that no transfer into ENR? Yeah, so I think this is probably the last update we'll get to this committee, and the next from here on in they'll be going to E&R. Am I right?
That's correct, yeah. I was looking for my colleague Simon Fieldhouse. I'm not sure if he's on the call around the core paths element of the report.
I think what I'm wondering, Willie, if Willie's happy to accept that we can get Simon to talk to him offline about that, given that it's halfway between us and E&R at this moment in time, so there's a transition period, isn't there? So Willie's nodding as though he could take that up with Simon, right, Fieldhouse, yeah. And let him take it forward through E&R, given this is a historical report, isn't it? So part of it anyway is. So are you okay with that, Willie?
Okay with that one, Chair. Again, appreciate what Mike has said in terms of the cycleways, and if he could keep in touch and give us an update in terms of the discussions that are going on with Sustrans to do with the 77 and the 75, particular to people coming off the boat in that location. I'll take the coastal pathways up with Simon, and just, you know, really to thank Duncan for the amount of work that he's put into the 716, but I think it does heighten the need for the people who live in and around Kilstay, the residents of the Grinnan, to get that alternative route finalised if the road is going to continue to be closed. We do need some acceleration and agreement out of the land owners or some way of bringing that about so that they are not totally isolated when the road is closed. And the last one is that we didn't get an answer on the flood prevention in Stranraer. It may be, as I say, out with this report.
I think it is out with this report. Mike, can you just confirm that?
Yeah, it's not part of this report, but I think James was wanting to give a verbal update on that.
Okay, James.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair, Councillor Scobie. Yeah, we're still progressing on the same programme as was previously supplied. The update, obviously working closely with Duncan and his team, Brian working closely with Duncan and his team. So there's some topographical survey ongoing at the moment, some additional modelling work in terms of hydraulic modelling of the sort of design elements to work item 6, which is at Station Street, as you're aware. Some continual landowner engagement around work item 4 as well. We're still a little bit of site investigation to undertake, but as I said at the outset, still working to the same programme. So hopefully that gives you some confidence, Councillor Scobie. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm getting a nod for Willie on that. Okay, so I'm going to move on. I've got John Young now, and then Jane.
Thanks, Chair. Page 83, section 4.32. Mike's already addressed this, but I'll raise it again anyway, if you don't mind, Chair. 4.32 states Sustrains continues to offer funding. Now, at the start of this year in January, we learned that from Sustrans that they'd paused approval over our Lochane active travel application. If you remember, that's the cycleway proposed from Christmichael into Castle Douglas. It was paused pending a financial review, and we've really heard nothing from Sustrans since. I wonder if it's possible to give an update and to ask whether if that our present bid, which has been submitted, will continue, or will we need to have to resubmit and start from scratch again?
Mike, are you able to answer, or do you want to get some time to gather an answer and then respond?
I think I'm more than happy to go away and get some additional information, Chair. We've never heard anything further back from Sustrans, any further updates at all. So I think it'd be prudent just to go away and get an update and come back.
Okay, that's good. And when you get the update, you can update at least the 3 ward members and the members of this committee. If you could do that, it'd be fantastic. Okay?
Okay.
You all right with that, John?
That's tremendous. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Jane?
Thank you, Chair. It's a question about the speed limits and traffic calming, Chairman. I'm curious to know what the policy says, the Council's policy is about provision of speed activation signs, because in my understanding, the villages very often have to buy their own and or asked to get their own activation signs, whereas the larger settlements, Kirkcudbright, Castle Douglas, all actually have them provided by the council. And I just wondered whether this is an entirely equitable approach to the provision of these traffic calming arrangements. If there's a policy, by all means, let's hear it so we can explain to people what the council is doing.
You okay, Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Currently, and up until very recently, the council didn't have a policy in relation to provision and ownership. As Councillor Maitland says, that over the years that there's a variety of these type of signs within the region, different manufacturers, different styles, and different locations, and some of them have been funded by council and some have been funded by individual community councils and groups. But as part of the road service review, we're looking to provide a framework and a policy that's going to drive how we actually manage this asset moving forward. In its current form, we're seeing situations where signs have been in place for several years and manufacturers have gone out of business and it's unable to get spare parts for particular locations, which just isn't a prudent way of managing the asset. So, and to give clarity that we're actually looking at some form of new policy that's going to give guidance for how we manage these assets moving forward.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Jane?
That's fine, thank you.
I'm not seeing anybody else wanting to come in at this stage, so I'm getting ready to move to recommendations. Are we happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 to 2.6?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody. Move on to item number 7, the Road Service Improvement Action Plan. I have to advise members that due to some administrative errors, Appendix 3 has been withdrawn. It will now be brought to the next meeting of this committee on the 5th of October. When we come to recommendation 2.2, I would propose that this is no longer considered. Again, I've got Mike available on Teams to take any questions on this report. Mike, are you happy to go straight to questions?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Yeah, happy to go to questions.
Thank you. Have we any questions for Mike? Jane?
Thank you, Chairman. My question is, it's about, forgive me if this isn't the right place to raise it, but I think it probably is. It's the tension that we've got between what I understand to be the settled will of the council to press forward with 20-mile-an-hour limits, and the legacy programme that we've got of schools, 20 think. Of different sorts of limits. That's already happening in villages. Members have said to me that their villages have got 20-mile-an-hour and 30-mile-an-hour in them. I know that the councillors are anxious to help with active travel and to reduce speeds in the centre of towns. So I wonder how this is going to be reconciled, because at the moment I concede if we keep pressing forward with the last few schools, because they are the smaller roles, we're going to find a jigsaw of speed limits in villages. I wonder if you can help me with how we're going to bring this forward and explain to the committee how this will be managed.
Mike?
Thanks, Chair. The proposal, as Councillor Maitland said, that we have schools that have been assessed and have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits outside the school that have been in place for several years. And we've 22 schools that we're now currently starting to look at the data for these schools. The intention is that the next committee in October that we were intended to bring forward a report covering the revised 20-mile-an-hour policy, which covers not only schools but also covers neighbourhood zones and wider 20-mile-an-hour zones. So that's hopefully will allow members the opportunity to scrutinise how we are going to undertake this assessment as we move forward over the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, Jane?
Yes, thank you. I'll look forward to that. I think that will be very helpful.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crossover from the last agenda item as well, isn't it? So we're going to have to marry that up pretty neatly, I would suggest. Anyone else got any questions? Willie?
Thank you, Chair. It's on page 115 and it's active travel, parking, road safety and traffic work package groups. And it refers in there to signage. And you and I discussed this last week at RRR, recovery, whatever. And it's really to do with moving forward on displayed signage that is out of date or could be out of date in terms of bylaw. And I know Mike Grunwell is working hard on this, but we do need this to move forward as quickly as possible. Also, if we could get an update on the decriminalisation of parking enforcement and how this is going to operate if we're moving towards a situation where the council will have responsibility or could have responsibility for on-street car parking in towns where people park most of the day without the police enforcing the signs that are already there. What the impact will be on the council on that one, Chair.
Mike, yeah, can you update us on that? Because I believe you recruited to a post there, did you? Can you give us a bit of an update on that?
Yeah, just to maybe to cover the first point that Councillor Scobie raised regarding signing, some of this links directly to the work that Sustrans are currently and have been undertaking around strategic cycle route network. But also the need for and it was picked up really from members of the public as well about the need for better signing for cycle routes within the region in general, not just at any particular location. So that is part of the work package and part of the work plan that particular group are working on at the moment. On the element of decriminalised parking, the situation at the moment is that we're currently just on the cusp of going out to the market, as was agreed last committee, for external support to start to look at the parking strategy for Dumfries and Galloway. within that, one element of that is the decriminalised parking enforcement. And at the moment, there's actually, we have a meeting set up very soon with Transport Scotland, and that's with a view to starting to get a greater understanding from not just Transport Scotland, but from other authorities within Scotland, how they have tackled the decriminalised parking, because there are still quite a few that have not actually undertaken decriminalised parking enforcement as yet. So we're part of that kind of group of authorities that we're still looking for some guidance as well from Transport Scotland, how what options are out there and how that's been undertaken. And certainly the plan is that we will be coming back to members with hopefully a suite of options that can be discussed, and which will obviously show the impacts and potential impacts on the council.
Okay, Mike, thank you. Willie, do you want to come back on that?
Any idea when? And Mike touched on the signage in terms of active travel, which I referred to, but it's the overnight parking and is it the TPO that you referred to last week, Chair, when we're likely to see this completed. As I say, I know Mike Grunwell's working on it, and it's something that's happening as we speak. In terms of notices are still displayed saying there should be no overnight parking, but they're no enforceable.
Yeah, can you update us, Mike?
Yeah, certainly, Chair. That piece of work that Councillor Scobie's mentioned there is the various car parks order that's currently basically having the I's dotted and the T's crossed, that we're ready to go out to consultation on that particular one. So certainly the information I have at the moment is that the consultation on that hopefully will start at some point during early September.
Okay, thanks. Dougie Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. I'm particularly encouraged by the range of actions in the Road Service Action Plan that relate directly to carbon reduction. And for reference on pages 127 and 128, I hope that other departments in the council are looking carefully at what's happening in the road service, because they're very much taking the lead. And it's an example of best practice that other departments should be following. And it's important to note that a lot of the actions are really practical and generic, and are not just actions that have to sit within the road service. The specific question I've got is in relation to the action 20.4, which is in regards to staff awareness and events and toolkits. And appreciate that this is under development at this stage. However, I feel very strongly that the best ideas and solutions on practical ways to reduce carbon emissions will come from the people that are out there doing the job operationally. So it's just to ask Mike, is it anticipated that this level of training and awareness will be a two-way process to empower staff and to encourage them to take ownership of the council's priority to tackle climate change? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks through yourself, Chair. Just to a wee bit of detail for Councillor Campbell on that one. What we have planned, which is actually due to start next Friday, are a series of workshops which will involve our operational workforce and technical staff, and it's very much around the opportunity to give some background for the staff, but also give them opportunity to come up with suggestions on how we can change how we operate. It's not just a one-off. There's a series of these workshops planned, so it's a mechanism to actually to go to staff and to get their involvement and input, and also hopefully a bit of ownership as well of the potential solutions that they may come up with.
You okay with that, Dougie?
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. As I said previously, I very much feel that the road service are demonstrating best practice in relation to our overall response, and I hope other departments will pay close attention to what's happening in the service. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Thanks, very good. Thanks very much for that, Dougie, for that compliment of the road service. Anybody else got any questions for Mike? Not seeing any, so I'm going to move to recommendations. Are we happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 and 2.3? Right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 8. Report advises members on the progression of bids for capital investment from the Scottish Government's Recycling Improvement Fund and seeks approval for Stage 2 bids. James McLeod is available in Teams, and in the first instance will provide the committee with, on this occasion, a verbal update on the feedback from last week's ad hoc waste collection, treatment and disposal subcommittee, and then be able to take us through any questions on the report. I think the first thing is that I know that in the past we've said that really we'd prefer written updates, but I think the timing here being on Friday afternoon and Tuesday morning didn't allow that to happen. So that was a diary issue, I would suggest. And if we can sort the diary issue out, the ad hoc waste collection updates would come as a written paper. But on this occasion, I'm happy that we let James give us a verbal update. So James, are you ready?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I apologise for that. There is a keenness within the service to progress, particularly one of the bids around the garden waste collection service. So the opportunity of these very close running subcommittee and then committee at least allows us to do a verbal update. The bids that are contained within this report, the discussion around the bids at waste subcommittee was supportive of members of waste subcommittee were supportive of the progression to a stage 2 bid for the garden waste service. There was some discussion also around other elements of the bids to the Recycling Improvement Fund as detailed in 2.3. And again, the waste subcommittee were supportive of that. So happy to take any questions around this report, and in particular around the bids to the Recycling Improvement Fund. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, James. Have you any questions for James? Willie?
Thank you, Chair. It's just on page 169, and really to thank James for the work he's putting in, particularly to Stranraer in terms of the what is going on with the HWRC and the community reuse shop, which is an exemplary and hopefully should be rolled throughout the whole of the region, particularly with a bullet point in provision of walk in covered skips to all sites to allow public to place items that could potentially be reused. Just to say that the community reuse shop is actually in the running. It's one of 5 for a national award, and it's the work of James and others and the staff at the community reuse shop that has put them in that position. But I would hope we could, and maybe James, if you could say how we could use this Recycling Improvement Fund and any other fund that is available to develop, their ideas and potential at the community reuse shop to even do greater things and to improve the opportunities for employment at that site.
Thanks, Willie. I think that was a commendation, wasn't it? Yeah, thank you. It'd be interesting to hear how they got on in their bid. James, do you want to come in?
Chair, yeah, just through yourself, Councillor Scobie, thanks for that. I'm not going to take any of the credit associated with the work that's gone on there. I'll take credit as things move forward, and we hopefully work even more closely with them. And had the immense pleasure of meeting with Paul a couple of weeks ago and discussed further opportunities for closer working between the council's waste service and the service that he delivers. In terms of the Recycling Improvement Fund, the service are aware, and this will in future come to committee, but the service are aware of, and I'm sure you will be as well, of a keenness from the Stranraer furniture project, the reuse shop there, to extend their facility into land that the council currently owns, and there has been some initial discussions about a community asset transfer. My service is very supportive of that, and will look to work closely with Paul on that application, along with colleagues in economic development as well. So we can update at a future committee meeting on that. So it was just to say, yes, I can't take the credit for what's gone before, but yes, we will continue to work with them, and hopefully we can improve the reuse rates, which obviously reduces the amount that ends up not being or ends up being put to landfill or other forms of recovery and recycling, reuse being the best option.
Thanks, James. Okay, I'm getting a nod of the head from Willie. He's happy with that. Is there anyone else? John Martin, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's just to clear something up, James. Can you put garden waste in your grey bin? I thought you were allowed to put small amounts of garden waste in your grey bin, but I heard that a pensioner, their bin wasn't emptied last week because they had a small some garden waste in their bin, their grey bin, and it was left. It hadn't been emptied.
Chair, through yourself, Councillor Martin, I can confirm, as you'll see on page 167, that on the second lot of how do you currently dispose of your garden waste, as we undertook in the survey, about 46% of people dispose of garden waste in their non-recyclable bin, and this is a perfectly legitimate way of getting rid of waste. So if there's a particular incident here, then I'm certainly happy to take that offline with yourself. And we can see the crews can investigate why that's happened. But no, I think the important thing to note in that, so I'm just going to labour this point while I've got the opportunity. You can see that nearly 50% of people put their garden waste in a non-recyclable bin, which means we're obviously sending a lot to process at an expensive cost, where a garden waste service would hopefully reduce that significantly.
Thanks, James. I think the person will be in touch with you.
Okay, anyone else? Jim Dempster.
Just very belatedly, Chair, given what James has just said, I presume no matter whether we develop a garden waste collection service or put it in the non-recycling bins or no, we'll still have an option for members of the public to take their garden waste to civic amenity sites for disposal in the normal way. I take it that will still be the case.
Through yourself, Chair, yes, absolutely, Councillor Dempster. That if a garden waste service is developed, then it'll be developed around a wheeled bin system, a wheelie bin system, a similar size to or the same size as the ones we currently have for general waste or recycling waste. So if you're doing a big garden clearance job of cutting down trees and things like that, then clearly that's going to exceed the capacity. So. And also not everybody will want to, this is an opt-in service, and not everybody will want to opt into that service for garden waste. So they still have the option to go to a household waste recycling centre with green waste, garden waste.
Thanks very much, James. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, anyone else wanting to speak? No, I'm not seeing anybody. I think I'm duty bound to say, James, that the team are extremely good at reacting to when mistakes have been made or when things have been missed and whatever. And I really think we should be applauding, because the number of those over the piece during this whole process is really quite small. So the number of glitches we've had are relatively small. And when they've been brought to attention, that your service has actually reacted very positively and very quickly. So maybe I'll pass on the thanks to that whole team just for the way they've conducted themselves over this whole transition period. That's my position on it. I'm not seeing anybody else now want to come in, so I'm going to move to the recommendations. So are we happy if we agree the recommendations 2.1 and 2.4? And it should be and 2.3, of course, we're going to continue the bid, right? So it should be 2.1 to 2.4, not and 2.4. All right, we agreed with that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing that Mrs. Maitland's agreeing with my comments about the way that the team have performed, James. So well done. Thank you very much for this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll make sure it's passed on to the team. That's greatly appreciated.
Okay, thanks, James. Right, we'll move on now to item number 9, Capital Investment Strategy, Land Asset Class Capital Progress Report. Provides members with an update in relation to the projects and financial progress of the Land Asset Capital Programme for 21-22 from the 1st of April to the 30th of June. I've got Nicola Simpson available in Teams to take any questions on the report. Are you there, Nicola? Just wait for Nicola joining us. Morning, Nicola. I think she's got a problem with her technology. I think Nicola's got some problems here. I'm just wondering whether we can park item 9 and then move to item 10. Oh, right, sorry, you're in, Nicola, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
No, it's okay, not a problem. Okay, I've introduced the report. Is there anything you want to add, or are you happy going straight to questions?
Happy to go straight to questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Nicola? John Young.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Nicola. It's probably just a very small thing. Page 180, 3.10. Pink projects brought forward to 21-22, blue 21-22 projects. I presume pink means it's projects that were scheduled for much later have been brought forward to this present year. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, because there were things that we felt we would need to address this year.
That's it, simple as that. Thanks, Nicola.
Okay.
Okay, John. Jim Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. Apologies in advance. I've got quite a few questions for Nicola, quite a few questions. The first one is on page 179, 3.4. It says there that it was agreed at Communities Committee 75k for the Sandside Mugger and 10k would be added to the existing project for Sanker Cemetery Extension Table exploratory work to progress. Well, there was 1.5 already committed, so surely that should read 11.5 new in the spreadsheet and no 10k, because it says here 10k is to be added.
Well, 10k was for the new part of the works. The previous monies that were there were for the first part of the work that was done, which was the tabletop exercise, which was carried out several months ago. Yeah.
That explains that, Nicola. I thought there was 1.5k missing somehow. Next question is maybe no, I mean, you'll nobody who can answer it, but reading the spreadsheet, there's money set aside for the cemetery or the proposed cemetery extension at Castle Douglas for a drainage work. And the report that you kindly shared with me for the proposed extension in Sanker, there was an issue about the extension going ahead at all because it was next to a stream. So I don't understand how SEPA can agree to drainage work in one cemetery and then tell us we can't develop another one because it's next to a stream, because clearly only runoff for a cemetery and drainage will go into a stream somewhere, or a burn or a river. So I find it's no for today, but I just wanted to sort of bring that to your attention. It seems to me a strange approach by SEPA that they can allow drainage in one cemetery and tell us we can't develop another cemetery because we're next to a watercourse. But it's no for today, but
I can investigate that a bit further for you, but I think it'll be to do with the distance away from the stream. So that it might be possible to do some drainage work to divert anything away from the stream, and it's within a distance, a specified distance. But I'll certainly seek clarity on that for you, and I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you. The next one is again in the spreadsheet. Oh, and can you try and get the spreadsheet a bit bigger? I had to go and get a magnifying glass to look at it.
Yes, I had trouble myself with the size of it. It's trying to keep it all in the one line, otherwise it's difficult to follow it across.
Right, okay. Next one is, you've got allocated 20k for the McKellar Cemetery, and that's great. But according to the spreadsheet, that money won't be spent by March next year. And that's now 3 years it's been sort of awaiting a completion. COVID-19, of course, caused the issue, but we've had a really good summer when there'd be a great opportunity to get drainage work done at a time when it would be kind of ready for the poorer weather. But it seems a shame that we're running another year before we even start this work. And again, maybe no for today, but if you could look into what the delay is and when that's likely to happen, that would be great, Nicola.
I will do, yes.
Okay, can I just take this? Just a minute, can I just take the opportunity to remind this is a strategic committee and not a ward committee. Jim, a lot of these issues could have been dealt with an officer offline.
Yeah, okay, the last three are strategic, I can tell you then, Chair. Scottish Government manifesto commitment to renew play parks, and we've got a formula and a figure of 140k, and obviously they've got to work out where these monies will be invested. Given that it's a region-wide assessment and there are children that will be used as a formula in every ward, I would hope there would be some investment in every ward. And I realise it's not a lot of money today, but over the years it might be significant. There's some investment in every ward, because the whole intention, I think, is for all children to benefit in some way. And it doesn't say that because it's quite conceivable we could spend 140k on a play park in every region in the region of the council area. So I would just hope there'd be some commitment in every ward. And I'm also interested in the wildflower Verge Meadow initiative. Would that be led by communities or led by our team? It's on the spreadsheet. It's about, I take it, no cutting grass anymore and introducing wildflowers, and it's all the environmental friendly things that we try to do now. And I just wonder who would lead on it, because it doesn't say, it just says it's an initiative and there's money set or identified for it, and I think it's next year's programme.
I would expect that that'll be a mixture of both. We will work with communities. If there's communities are particularly keen to see this in their area, then we would work with them, but it would be communities staff who would do the work for this.
Very good. And the last one, it's a good news story. And it's no before time, I think, that the council had changed the direction, and it's 3.6 and page 180. I remember well the pantomime that the Killahome folk had trying to get their cemetery up to a reasonable standard. They even had to use money for their own charitable organisations to resurface the road into it. And I see we're setting aside £1 million for Dumfries Cemetery. and it's to be set aside solely for this project. I would hope this would be a council policy situation whereby whenever there's a cemetery needed, wherever it might be, we should identify the kind of funds that are necessary for that, draw down from the capital or the reserves and have it sitting aside, because it makes your life easier, Nicola. It makes the development of the site easier, and it's absolutely comforting for a community to know that when the time comes for that development to take place, that the funds are already in place. I think it's a great idea. I absolutely support it, but I'd like to see it as a policy community by community basis. If we're doing it for them all, it's a great thought. It's a great approach, something I fully endorse. I'd just like to see it built into the policy so that no matter where the need arises, the same approach was made. And thanks for your time, Nicola, and thanks, Chair, for the indulgence.
Well, OK, Nicola, can you answer all the strategic questions we've got from the member for Upper Nithsdale?
The play equipment one, we would normally endeavour to try and share any funds across all wards as equally as we can possibly manage. So we certainly will bear that in mind going forward. And there will be a list of projects that we choose to spend this money on coming back to the committee for their information as time goes on. The cemetery one, the last part there, we'll make a note of Councillor Dempster's comments, and we also felt that was the best way of dealing with this. I don't think I can say here whether that will go into policy or not. That's probably a decision for members, but if members wished a report to come forward for that, they could let us know.
Chair, if that's a proposal from Nicola, I know she's not allowed to make proposals, I'd absolutely endorse it, because it would be really encouraging for all members to know and have a comfort that the council had a strategy, a policy, that it was random before. Nicola's brought forward a very good report that deals exactly with how this thing should be addressed, and it's one of those sensitive areas where there's a lot of resentment if we don't deal with it right. This is an opportunity today. Dumfries right, and I would trust we would have a paper coming forward that would suggest this is how we approach a development of this nature in the future. Thanks, Chair.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. Nicola can't make a proposal to this committee, but she can certainly report to us and keep us informed. That's very good. Now, I've got Dougie Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. It's to ask Nicola about the provision of litter picking packs. It's on the spreadsheet, and I see that's unallocated in terms of a rollout of that. In my experience, I'm increasingly been contacted by individuals and groups from across the region who are looking for council support on helping them organise litter picks, whether it's on beaches, roads, verges or wherever. And my experience on contacting asset managers has been really positive. Just the question for Nicola is, do we still have a supply of packs that we can distribute to communities? And when do you expect the next batch to be purchased as per the spreadsheet? Thank you.
We do have some available in each area that we can loan out to groups at the moment. The funds that are mentioned there is for buying some in to give out to groups permanently, because we do have some groups that want to do very, very regular litter picks, and we have some that want to do them quarterly, so we just lend the stuff out for that. I would just recommend that any group is passed over to us to contact us directly, and we'll certainly support as much as we can on an ongoing basis. But that one that you've mentioned there is a green project, so it'll be for next year.
Could I just come back briefly, Chair?
Yeah, of course, Dougie.
It's just to say, I think it's great that we are providing this service for community groups, because people are searching for practical ways that they can play their part in protecting the environment and responding to the climate emergency. So it's important that we support communities in doing that. So I'm grateful to Nicola for her response. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Nicola? Jim, do you want to come back in?
With your indulgence, Chair, two things. Firstly, one of the things I wrote to one of Nicola's service managers about was waste bins. I was in Annan last week on a site visit and I noticed their waste bins said litter and under it dog waste. And I wrote to our local service manager and got a very positive response back. But I think, you know, this is something we could do as a region-wide approach because we're trying to encourage folk to deal responsibly with dogs' waste. And that's, if it's actually on the bin, that the bin can be used for that purpose, it takes away any doubt. And it's a reminder that they should dispose of their dog waste responsibly. I just thought it was a good idea. Annan had our own service manager responded positively, and just a marker in case Nicola has to the responsibility of ordering these bins if these bins could become with that extra additional lettering on it. And the other thing, of course, Chair, I'd be keen to see a paper come forward on a council policy for burial grounds, given the positive approach that Nicola has developed for the Dumfries one. And I would hope members would support that and something that we'd want to invite officers to do in the immediate, well, the forthcoming months, just to get the council's view on how we should progress with burial grounds across the region. I'd be grateful for your support in that, Chair.
Yeah, outside this meeting, of course, Jim, because we're not going to make policy on the hoof here, but I'm certain that's something I can take up with the Director and the Heads of Service and Nicola to develop something down those lines to see what the view of all 43 members in it is. So, yeah, I'm getting a nod, I think, from Derek. That's something we can do. Okay.
Very much appreciated, Chair. I'm grateful to you and Derek and Nicola for our work on the Dumfries one. Thanks, folks.
Okay, I'm looking. I think that's everybody now, Nicola. Yeah, ask questions. The only comment I'm going to make, we normally get the Excel spreadsheet. It's normally twice that size. So for some reason it is too small to read. I appreciate that's a print issue, that's not your issue, Nicola, but I think just for members' assurance that we'll actually look into make sure that when that comes round the next time it'll be big enough for people to read. And the other suggestion I'm going to make to you is that there are certain colours, black on certain colours, that are very hard to read for people with sight problems or people who have got some or one of the forms of dyslexia. So maybe a wee think when we put those forward to the print unit or whoever it is that's printing them off for us, we can just take that into account. But I appreciate that's not your problem, Nicola, but I think that's just for the other members to note. So given that we've not got anybody else wanting to speak, are we now happy to go to the recommendations? Are we happy to agree the recommendations 2.1 and 2.2? Okay. Thank you very much. Nicola, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. The Vice Chair's just pointing out, is on an iPad or on a computer screen, you can see much bigger. But it's for people who get paper copies. It was a challenge, let's say. So we'll move on to item number 10, the capital investment strategy for the vehicle/fleet asset class. And a report provides members with an update in relation to the outturn of the vehicle/fleet asset capital programme for 21-22 Q1. We've got Gordon Bryce available on Teams to take on any questions on the report. Just there was one thing, I did have a quick telephone conversation with Gordon yesterday. Gordon, can you update the members on the locations of the charging points that you're mentioning in the report, please? Especially the ones around about council headquarters.
Yeah, morning, Chair. Thank you. Just for a point of clarity on that then, Chair, the 90 chargers that are mentioned in the latter paragraph, or the latter part of the paragraph in 3.5, will be spread between the section behind HQ, the Lorburn car park and the large car park over by the Oasis Centre, sort of between the Oasis Centre and the police station.
Thank you. And the rationale again for so many being outside St Joe's?
The car park at St Joe's because it's not within the secure perimeter of the school and the position or the car park itself, it's going to double up as residential charging for residents within that area for nighttime parking, and in particular some carers that we've sort of innovated over into electric vehicles that live in that side of the town, and then throughout the day members of staff within the school can also use it for charging chair. So it's got a bit of a mixed use, that car park, and it just sort of lended itself in the location that it was in and to the type of funding that we were able to apply for to get those chargers in there.
Okay, Gordon, thanks for that update. So are you ready just to go to other questions then?
Yeah, happy to accept any other questions, Chair. Thank you.
I'm just waiting here to see if anybody's coming forward with any questions. Aye, John Martin.
We're putting them in St George's, Gordon. When the new high school gets built, will there be charging points put in there at the time?
Sorry, Councillor Maher, where was that?
When the rebuild of the Dumfries High School takes place, and will there be charging points put in there at the time?
I've not had any conversation specifically on that location, but that's something I can pick up with colleagues up the stair and Pet. Usually, with the new sort of way of working, we're starting to sort of collaborate a wee bit more with our colleagues up the stairs to make sure that charging points are being put into new builds. So I'll pick that up with the guys up the stair.
Okay, John's okay with that. So, Gordon, I mean, there's obviously a huge move towards electric vehicles, and the demand for charging points is just growing exponentially. So, I'm assuming then, or is it reasonable to assume that you'll be having discussions with strategic housing, for example, and the planners about new build houses and everything else, that they have some form of ability to charge their vehicles? I don't mean you have charging points in every house, but at least the infrastructure was there for people to put them in if they wanted to.
Yeah, we've been having discussions for a wee while in the background, Chair, with strategic housing, and we've just actually CC'd some points. It's sent an email with some points this morning for the Wheatley Group to look at any potential places, a sort of partnership working for residential parking and charging within their estate as well. So it is something that we're looking at.
Okay, Gordon, that's very reassuring. Tracy, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask, it says at the bottom of that paragraph that Gordon was talking about, 3.5, that works will be completed by the summer 2021. So how far on are we with this work?
Through yourself, Chair, the works at St Joe are complete. The works behind HQ are starting this morning, so they've started over at the Oasis Centre. The contractors said within the next 4 weeks they'll be complete, and then we'll look at Scottish Power connecting the full site up early October. So really before the October holidays it should be done, all going well and to plan, of course.
That's great, thanks.
I will no split hairs about whether that's the summer or the late summer or the early autumn, but yeah, the point's taken, Gordon. I'm just wondering, anybody else? Have we got anybody else? Right. Okay, Gordon, I didn't seem to have anybody else, and you've answered the questions up to now very clearly. Sorry, John Young wants to come in.
Just very briefly, Chair, thank you for letting me in. Gordon, who manage these chargers? There used to be a Charge Play Scotland arrangement where you paid an annual fee, and Charge Play Scotland, I think, has moved to Swarco now. So who will be responsible for managing, collecting and maintaining all these chargers?
Through yourself again, Chair, Councillor Young, the back office system has moved to Swarco, but the system will very much be the same. So Charge Play Scotland will still be in place as such. The network will be managed with the same phone numbers and everything else as it was before. There is some modernisation going on where the charge points will accept your bank card as opposed to the card that you pay £20 an annual fee for at the moment. That will probably see that disappearing, and everything will just be contactless directly through your bank. But the main point here is that you shouldn't really see a difference as a customer.
That's
Okay.
great, Gordon.
Okay, John, yeah.
Can I just ask a further point? Will the council have any costs of future maintaining all these charge points?
Yes, there will be ongoing revenue costs. The last year hasn't really lended itself to allowing us to maintain the analysis that we've been doing. But what we're doing is we're continuing that analysis on the usage, on the running costs, the maintenance and the warranty costs that are involved in that, and that should be covered in any charge out rate that we have on the per kilowatt charge out rate on the chargers themselves. At the moment, we're probably breaking even in that. The funding is starting to state that the ongoing revenue costs should be now maintained by the authorities. So that's something that we'll need to look at closely in the near future.
Thank you.
Gordon, a question from me then, just based on that, and I'm looking at 3.6, and you've got, you know, where you've got future EV infrastructure coming in, and I can understand why these are in the boroughs themselves, I'm assuming. So is there an expectation that the council will maintain charging points on the trunk roads, which is Transport Scotland responsibility rather than the council's? Are we expected as an authority to service all the electric vehicles, or is there supposed to be some sort of shared or strategy on this with, say, Transport Scotland in the main?
Chair, there's no shared strategy when it comes to maintaining the network. If us being the council install the equipment, then it's down to us to maintain it. If Transport Scotland or whoever it is that's maintaining the trunk roads fit chargers within their own network, then obviously they would maintain that. But anything to date that's been installed within our region will be down to us to maintain and look after.
Okay, thanks for the clarity. Okay, have we got anybody else wanting to speak? I think so. I think that's everybody. Dougie, you want back in?
Yeah, please, just very quickly, Chair. I think Gordon's report kind of understates the importance of the work that he's leading, particularly in relation to electrifying our fleet and also providing the infrastructure, which in turn will encourage more people to look at buying electric vehicles. The specific question I have is in the table 3.3, Gordon, income from vehicle sales 105,000. Where does that money go? Does that stay within your budget, or does it get taken elsewhere?
That particular, so sorry, Councillor, through yourself, Chair. That money stays within the capital budget within the fleet. That particular money went towards buying an additional 10 electric vehicles this year, so it was money well spent there. And Councillor, on your first point, the paper being sort of understated, 100% agree, and without putting a proposal forward, I do mention that I can bring some further detail forward to the committee on the sort of future plans and a mere bespoke report on EV infrastructure and the fleets. It's probably an appropriate time to do that if members are agreeable, obviously.
Gordon, look, thanks for that offer, and I'm not sure whether that would be a form of a briefing for all 43 members rather than just the 21, because it affects everybody, or a paper and a briefing. I can leave that in your hands, and you can work it with your head of service, and we'll take it forward from there. So thanks for that offer. I've got nobody else, I think, so I'm ready to move. Are we happy to agree the recommendation? Thank you very much. Thanks, Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
We move on to item 11, the licensing of sexual entertainment venues, Civic Government Scotland Act 1982. A report asks members to consider passing a resolution licensing sexual entertainment venues and to note further proposals in that licensing process. We've got Caroline Traynor with us and Vlad Valente, the council lawyer, available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Caroline, is there anything you need to maybe explain or add to this, or are you quite happy to go to questions?
Thanks, Chair. I'm quite happy to go to questions if members are happy with that approach.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fine then. So it's open for Adam, you want in?
Thanks, Chair. Just a question, first of all, because the answer could impact on how I frame what I was going to say. Obviously, we're now starting to consider adopting a resolution. Obviously, in other sort of quasi-judicial committees, such as planning, if members were to sort of predetermine a position on, like, a wind farm application, they would then be sort of not allowed to take part in that decision. Would the same thing apply here for sexual entertainment venues if a member expressed a view and opinion on these venues? Would that then prevent us from sitting on a panel determining an application in the future?
Thanks, Councillor. Obviously, we've got Vlad, who's Head of Governance here, but my view is that if a member was to express an opinion either way at this juncture, then I would expect that there would be a perception of bias, and it would be prudent not to take part in any determination in the future. But I'll just check that my position, what I'm saying, is correct with Vlad.
If I could, through you, Chair, yes, I would agree with Caroline's response there that it would be prudent not to make such views known publicly in terms of any potential decisions that might be required in the future, not only in terms of the overall policy in this, but ultimately any cases that may come to be applied for in due course.
Is it okay if I come?
Yeah, go ahead, Adam, yeah.
Thanks. So thanks for that clarity. I'll be careful not to predetermine a position in what I say, but I think that, you know, there has been quite a, not necessarily misinformation, I just think a bit of a misunderstanding as to why we would do this process, but I think that we absolutely should pass the resolution. I just think that, you know, as a council, we need to have that ability to determine if it is suitable or not suitable, depending on what the view is of members on those particular panels. So I think just to make it crystal clear to the public that actually we're doing this process to protect the interests of everybody in the region and not necessarily to encourage these venues to come here.
Okay, I think that was a statement rather than a question. Adam, I think I'm waiting for, I see Ian Blake wants to come in. Ian, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, it's in the same vein as what Adam said. I think there is a lot of misconception out there. There's been a lot of activity in the press and social media about it looks as if we're trying to encourage such venues into the area. I think that if we did agree to go down the route of licensing the areas, that we have to make it crystal clear. The publication has to be clear, the reasons behind it, that it's not an encouragement, it's merely trying to manage the situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I'm agreeing with you, and I think the reporting has been very responsible this time round, actually. And especially the written media, they've listened to the debate the last time round, and in the main, that the professional news media outlets have been circumspect. They've read the paper, they've understood what the paper we're getting at here. And I think you're right, though, is that we've a piece of work to do here for the general public, just to make sure they understand exactly what the purpose of this paper is and what the next steps are. Has anybody else got any comment to make on this?
Chair, may I just interject there, just to give a little bit of guidance here, so if I may.
Yeah.
So thank you. So you've been asked if you wish to consider passing a resolution, as you're well aware, requiring that sexual entertainment venues be licensed. And you'll be fully aware from the terms of the report that if no resolution is passed, the process stops here now, which means in the future, sexual entertainment venues could openly operate throughout the region without regulation and control. So they could just come in and set up and basically do what they want, and open up in localities in relation to sensitive locations, such as perhaps near schools, residential areas, places of worship. So if there's no resolution is passed, then there's no control. Obviously, if a resolution is passed, that's a certain part of the process. And if a resolution is passed, then you're effectively saying that you wish to control sexual entertainment sexual entertainment venues. Therefore, if you can control them, then the next step of the process is to look at drafting a sexual entertainment policy statement, which would involve a 3-month consultation with members of the public and other relevant stakeholders, looking at public involvement in terms of looking at conditions to attach. So the idea is if you pass a resolution and you're controlling venues, you would then be looking at numbers and appropriate localities. And when you're looking at numbers at that sexual entertainment policy statement consultation, then it is open to set a number at 0. However, if you say there's going to be 0 sexual entertainment venues in Dumfries and Galloway, it is always open for someone to come along with something new to say, because you cannot fetter your discretion. But I think what's very, very important to know is that I'm fully confident that you are all keeping a very, very open mind in relation to this process, and that there is no predetermination as to the next stage. So if a resolution is passed today, if it's not passed, it stops, the process stops there. But if it is passed, the next stage is a very, very open, neutral position whereby the sexual entertainment policy statement is drafted, and we go out again to a further public consultation, looking at matters such as what areas in Dumfries and Galloway, if any, are appropriate for sexual entertainment venues to be located, what number, if any, should be a cap, and other issues such as conditions, just to make that a wee bit clearer. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I was actually going to take the recommendations in 2 stages. I was going to ask whether we agreed 2.1 and then to expand on the next steps. But they're very clearly set out in the report, and you've just accentuated that, Caroline, so thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else wanting to come in and speak on this, so I'm minded to go straight now to the recommendations. Are we happy with the recommendation 2.1? Agreed? And then, following from that, are we happy to note the next steps in the process, in which will be guided by the legal team from the Council and the experts? Happy with that? Everybody agreed? Thank you very much, Caroline and Vlad. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to item number 12, the DGSP/Wheatley Group Neighbourhood Environmental Teams, report by the Head of Roads and Infrastructure. The report informs members of the opportunities for collaborative working with the DGHP/Wheatley Group Neighbourhood Environmental Teams on elements of the public realm service delivery. Jamie James is available with us through Teams to take any questions. And I suppose there's a number of bullet points in this, Jamie, that are not quite the remit of the public realm service delivery, but are lifted from a consultation or a seminar type event. So are we wanting to, as much as we can, keep this to the public realm? The bits that this committee have delegations for, rather than things that are delegated elsewhere. I'll be guided by you in this one, Jamie.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's just one point that needs to be removed, and that's perhaps the area for play parks. It's still DGHP and the Wheatley Group are still in consultation over that at the moment. There's still work to be done.
Okay then, so Jamie, is there anything you'd like to add to the report, or are we quite happy to go to questions?
No, happy to go to questions, Chair.
Adam and then Willie.
Thanks, Chair. And this maybe isn't a point for Jamie, but just because we're sort of considering this close collaboration, I fully welcome. I think, certainly I'm sure all members have a sort of list of issues that would come under here within their wards. But I think one thing that would be very useful, it does sort of reference about sort of closer working, particularly with our ward officers. But I think what would be really handy to be developed is sort of a clear way for elected members and for communities to be able to feed in any issues that there are, and to try and get a resolution. And I'm wondering if maybe the use of actually of feeding into those processes could essentially be feeding into DGHP as well. And if that type of thing could be fed into this work, then I think that would be very useful and clear and concise for communities and for elected members.
Just go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you, through the Chair. No, that's a very good point that you raise, and we'll certainly look into that, and we'll feed that back to members as to how that process will be enacted.
Thank you. I've got Willie, then Jim Dempster.
Yeah, Chair, I think we should welcome this. It's a move forward from what we had before, just as a DGHP led housing association. Wheatley Group have come in and they've improved, in my opinion, the service and the manner in which they do it. There's a number of points in the bullet points, and I heard Jamie talking about taking out development of play equipment on DGHP land. I know that, and Adam referred to it, that each one could speak on his or her own ward, but there has been great collaboration from DGHP, perhaps through the Wheatley Group, in terms of, I think it was the first one in the whole of Dumfries and Galloway, and there was reference made to wildflowers and King George V Plainfield, or the Bogus, we fondly know of it, is one of the first in Dumfries and Galloway, and it's been a tremendous success. So if that's the kind of approach we get from DGHP, we should welcome it. Also, the coordinating approach to bulky uplifts and fly tipping removal. This is something that was done years ago, and I would hope that we can develop that with Wheatley and DGHP. There was an amnesty at one time in the Dixhill area for people to put out their old sofas and different things, and that was a tremendous success. So if we can work with them on that, that would be tremendous. The other one there is coordinating an approach to creating space for allotments, and again there's moves within the community to actually take use of the legislation under allotments, and if we can get DGHP to be on board on that one, that would be great. And again, it's in reference to the last paragraph, working closely with the council ward officers to improve local communities and engage with community groups. And that's one of the areas that I would hope we can develop in terms of allotments, and encourage people to get out there doing gardening and providing for the community. That would be tremendous. So it's an excellent report, and I would hope that we totally embrace it and endorse all the action points that are within 3.3 and even the play equipment.
Yeah, absolutely, Lynn. I think that was the point I was trying to make at the start. Some of the bullet points aren't in our delegations or elsewhere, but that, quite rightly, that work's been brought under one umbrella to highlight it. So take your point entirely. Jamie, have you any comment on Councillor Scobie's points?
Other than no, I think I agree. It's a fantastic opportunity to do some joint collaborative working, and we can already see that there's opportunities with street scene waste services coordinating and getting involved in this and developing the areas for the public, and indeed engagement with ward officers as well as members will greatly improve the communities for everybody. I think it's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Jim Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. I think I'm just about to endorse what everybody else has been saying. I've got 3 RSLs, well, 4 if you count landowners, and so 3 RSLs in my area. And the Wheatley group and the performance is head and shoulders above anyone else's. They're responsive, they're reactive, and they actually do what they say they'll do. And if this is a trend, I would indeed look forward to it. I'm happy to have our ward managers engage with them. I think that's on the right. But as an elected member, I'd like to be involved as well, because we often have the folks on the ground coming to us with issues rather than going to officers, and it would be useful if we all work together. Well, my ward officer, we do, but I just think we need to be involved together to make sure that everybody understands what's happening and where the opportunities are when they present themselves. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. I'm just looking here. I think Ian, I think you've got your camera. There must be a problem with your camera. Ian Blake. You could turn it off, please. Thanks. Is there anyone else got a question? Willie, you went back in.
Maybe remiss, and I know you referred to, I referred to earlier, Chair, and Mike did say that he would take it up with him, but even a bullet point on what we talk about as the winter gritting, to include that in as a bullet point. It's often the fact that people struggle in the estates and they're neither on primary or secondary routes, but if we can work with DGHP, we might be able to work collaboratively and put smaller machines into these estates where you know, would benefit both sides.
Absolutely, and I think Jamie would probably pick that up. And it's also, again, to work with the local resilience groups as well, not necessarily through the council. So I think there's a real piece of work here that could benefit the whole region, you know, across every part of it, if we can really get this working well. And I've every confidence, given the early signs that we're seeing for the influence of the Wheatley Group on our biggest, or I think Scotland's second biggest RSL, is really welcome, and I would suggest for us in Dumfries and Galloway. Is there anyone else wants to come in? No. So I'm going to recommendations here now. Are we happy to agree the recommendation? I think what we should actually put a health warning on it, and I'm kind of looking at Derek here, is that we can only agree what's in our delegations. So maybe whether we need to put that in and a look at governance, whether it's sufficient as it is, or do we need to put in within our delegations?
Thanks, Chair. I'll leave Claire to deal with the detail, but broadly on that list, the good thing is that most of these are within the delegations of communities. And I think that's the point, really, that in principle communities lead on that, but we're already in discussions with colleagues across the Council about strengthening the relationship with the Wheatley Group on strategic issues. So quite clearly, as a Council, we're focused on this work, and this report primarily relates to Communities Directorate, so we would certainly not be in a position to take decisions out with our delegations, and we would never allow that to happen. But clearly it's a good reminder, but broadly speaking, most of this list fits within the Communities Directorate, but happy to defer to the Governance Officer. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Certainly, if you wish it to be made more explicit, we could look at expanding the recommendations to make it clearer.
I'm really keen that we actually embrace this as widely as we possibly can, but I'm just aware that I suppose we can take it from the director and take it from the heads of service and Jamie, the officers working on it. If they come across something that's clearly not in the delegations to Communities Committee, then it's passed to the appropriate people. So if we've got that assurance from the director, which is nodding, I think actually we just leave it as it is, and I'm quite happy with that. Is everybody happy? Right, okay. Thank you. Jamie, thanks very much for actually excellent report, so thank you. I'll move on now to item 13. I have no other business deemed urgent. So I'll go on to item 14, the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Consider adoption of resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A/4 and paragraphs 6, 8 and 9. I'm assuming we need to stop here and then move on to the other team's invitation. So we'll reconvene in 5 minutes, okay? Which should give everybody time to change over. Right? Okay, thank you.